Hi, this is Nancy from Life's Blessings at www.lifesblessings101.wordpress.com. I hope you're all doing well today. Today I wanted to share with you some things to consider when you're thinking about homeschooling. I know there are a lot of moms and dads that have not yet made up their mind this school year, even though the school year is highly approaching us. And I just wanted to give some tips and advice today for some things that I have learned that you should consider before you begin. The first thing that you would want to consider if you are thinking about homeschooling your children is that you and your spouse are on the same page. And if your spouse is not the biological parent of your child and you are co-parenting with the biological parent of your child, then you should also consider his or her feelings as well. It's very important that we do that because raising our children is a team effort. For most of us, it is a team effort and there's someone else involved there. Now, if you're a single parent and the biological parent is not involved, then you are free to go ahead. But if you are co-parenting, whether it be with the biological parent or with your current spouse or current partner, then you need to consider the feelings of that person, because you don't want to start doing something and it cause a wedge in between your relationship or in between the child and the parent, because they have a right to speak as well. So we want to be considerate of others that are involved in the care of our children when we're considering our children's education, whether it be to send the child to a public school, a private school, or to homeschool. Either way. Another thing to consider is your time. You need to sit down and really think about whether or not you have time to homeschool your children. There's a lot that goes into homeschooling, more than just the actual teaching or the learning. But there's a lot of preparation. There's a lot of sitting down and really thinking about everything. The other day I posted a video on how my family is relaxed in our planning. Just because we're relaxed in our planning, though, doesn't mean that I don't sit down and think about these things and have a general idea of what's going to happen with our homeschool. It is very important. It is imminent that we sit down and really think about what is going into their day. Whether it be a relaxed day, whether it be an unschooling day, whether it be a textbook day, however you are teaching your child, you need to consider the time that goes into all that planning, all that thinking, and what if they don't catch the subject? What if they don't grasp an idea that I am presenting? And then we have to go back and teach all over again. Or, do I have time to spend with my children at least a couple hours each day? Is that something that's even there? Whether it be in the morning, whether it be in the afternoon, and then plus still get to have fun with your kids, because that's important too. You don't want to just be all teachy whenever your kids are with you. So if you are working, long hours and you are barely coming in and seeing your kids before they go to sleep, and there's no one else to help you to homeschool your children, that it may not be the best idea for you. I am an advocate for homeschool. I believe that if the parents can teach their children inside the home, then that is the best option. But if you don't have the time, and you know that you don't have the time, and the other parent does not have time to sit down and spend with the children, then it may not be in your best interest. So that's something that you should consider. Patience is another thing that we should consider. if we're considering homeschooling. Homeschooling your children requires a lot of patience. I realize that most of us are with our children a lot anyway. But sometimes our children don't want to listen to us, especially if your children have been in a public school and you've removed them and you would like to homeschool them now. Think about the shift in authority there, that they will have to listen to you for their schoolwork as well as just being their mom or just being their dad. So think about your patience in that area, and certainly the Lord will provide. If if homeschooling is what's right for your family, the Lord will provide that patience for you if you ask Him. But that's something that you should think about before you begin homeschooling, is that you need patience in order to do this. Support system. For me, a lot of my support actually comes from here on YouTube. I don't have a lot of people in real life that support my decision to homeschool my children. And for me, the reason that they don't support it is very understandable. There are so many parents that are abusing the term homeschool, and they're not really homeschooling at all. They're not even unschooling their kids because they're not exposing their children to an environment in which they can learn. And so I understand the criticism. I understand the negative thoughts, because so many people have ruined the idea of homeschooling for those of us who are actually homeschooling. Okay, so I understand that. Another problem for me is that my husband is Hispanic. We go to a Hispanic church. Okay, so most of the ones in our church don't even know what homeschooling is, because that's a term that they don't understand. Because where they came from, homeschooling is illegal. So there's so much stigma involved around homeschooling that I really don't have the support system that I need in real life. Now, I do receive support from our local library, because homeschooling is a big thing around here. I live in the Bible Belt. So yes, there are plenty of homeschooling families around here. Although I am not completely convinced to join a co-op or anything like that, and I don't actually have one in my area. I live in a small town, so I don't have a co-op in my area, and I would have to drive at least an hour away just to send my kids to a co-op. And I don't know that I'm fully convinced in a co-op. So that's a video for another day. But in order to have that support system, I have to pull from different resources, if you will, rather than in my actual everyday life. So I come to YouTube. I come to hslda.org. I come to other various websites that do support homeschooling to receive my support. And some people may not have that strength to do that. Some people need a pat on the back or a good job or a, hey, I really see what you're doing with your kids is working. I used to be one of those people. But I have grown with the Lord, and I have that maturity now with the Lord, that it honestly does not faze me when people criticize, because I know that it's out of ignorance that they are criticizing. Ignorance is a lack of knowledge. So they don't understand. They don't know what I'm actually doing inside the home. And they have, many of the people that are criticizing our homeschool have not even sat down and talked to my kids. They don't know what my kids know. And they don't ask me what I'm doing in the homeschool or how I'm doing the things that I'm doing or why I'm doing the things that I'm doing. And if they would, I don't believe that they would be criticizing me so much. And some people are doing it Not because they mean any harm, but just because they're concerned, because it's a strange thought to them. Because like I say, the people in our church are coming from different countries where homeschooling is actually illegal, and they don't really know what it is. So I don't have that support system out in the world, but I do have the support that I need with my Heavenly Father, because He is the one that told me to homeschool in the first place. And I also have that support from YouTube creators, and I really value the information that I receive from other creators here on YouTube. So hats off to you. Thank you so much for always being there for me and for supporting me in my journey. But if you're the type of person that needs, actual tangible support, then that's definitely something to think about, because you're probably going to receive a lot of criticism, and you may receive a few people that are highly supportive of your homeschool journey. But please understand, you will receive criticism regardless of who you are, and regardless of which way you're homeschooling, whether you're an unschooler, whether you're a relaxed schooler, and these terms may be going right over your head if you're just now considering homeschooling, but you can look them up. Or whether you're a textbook teacher, or, whichever method you choose, you will still receive criticism, regardless if you're spending 1 hour a day in homeschooling, or if you are spending 5 hours a day, you will receive criticism, believe me. So you need to have that strength and that support system in order to continue. So another thing to consider if you are thinking about homeschooling is your children's thoughts. Now, that's especially if they are older, if they are, if they have been in the school system before, if they've been in public school, private school. Need to sit them down and have a conversation at least. Ultimately, you are the parent, and you should have that authority. And you do have that authority to nurture your children in the way that you see fit. And so you do have that authority to educate them in the way that you see fit. But your children may rebel against your decision. So that is something that you will have to deal with. Luckily for me, that was not the case. And I've shared that experience in other videos, but briefly I will state here that I had registered my son for kindergarten last year, back in April, before school had even begun. He never went to a day of kindergarten, but I did have to formally withdraw him from kindergarten. I never had an issue out of my son, okay? He was very, very excited about going to school. He was highly emotional, and he loved the idea at first about going to school. And then I knew that I had made a mistake in registering him, because the Lord had told me otherwise. The Lord had told me that in my life, taking care of my children meant that I was everything to them, and that at the magical age of 5, you do not send your child away for another woman or man to raise your child until he or she is nearly 18 years old and is headed off to college. That was not for me. That was not for our family. I knew that in advance, but I had gotten scared, and so I went along with my son's emotions, and I registered him for kindergarten, and then I had to go withdraw him. But before I withdrew him, I was in earnest prayer with the Lord, asking forgiveness for, and that may seem little or silly to some of you, and I'm sorry if it does, but to me it was serious. I started to pray, and I asked the Lord's forgiveness because I was disobedient against His commandment, however small or however great, and for me that's something great, to be disobedient toward the Lord. So I started praying, I asked for forgiveness, but I also asked for the Lord's help in getting out of this, because I told the Lord, I know I have the authority to just say no to my son. He's 4 years old. He's nearly 5. What is he going to do? He may throw a fit, but I have to do what I have to do. But I don't want to be that mom. I don't want to be that mom that turns her child against her for going to school. He's so excited. He's happy. All of his friends are going. So I started to pray for him. I told the Lord, if this is really you telling me to do all these things, and this is not any machination of my brain, this is not Nancy talking, this is the Lord talking, this is not the devil trying to tempt me into something, but this is the Lord talking, then change my little boy's mind. And he did. Within 2 weeks, I'm not sure exactly the time frame, this has been a year ago, but within 2 weeks, my little boy came to me and said, Mommy, we need to talk. And boom, there it was. He had changed his mind completely and felt that he needed to stay home and take care of Mommy. So he didn't want to go to school anymore because, as he put it, somebody had to watch Mommy. So whichever way it goes, praise the Lord that he changed his mind, and we are doing what the Lord has called us to do. So consider your children's thoughts. That's a big tip to you. Okay, and secondly, those were all part of number 1 that you should consider. Just the those are kind of the reality of it, the emotional side that you need to consider. Okay, now we're going to talk about the practical side. So for the practical side, you need to consider the laws or regulations in your state or province. So a great resource that I have found very helpful for my family is www.hslda.org. So after you finish watching this video and you are still considering homeschooling and you've got the emotional side taken care of, and or maybe you don't, but you're still considering and you're still praying, go to www.hslda.org, click on your state. You'll find a map there and also a list of states in the United States or provinces. If you live in Canada, they also include some other countries there on hslda.org. You can just click on your country, click on your province, and HSLDA would be able to give you a general guideline for the regulations in your area. So go there and check that out because you want to be in accordance with the law. All right, so number 3, the things that you should consider as far as actually doing it, actually teaching your kids. Type of teaching style. You need to think about what type of teacher you are. Now, this may come later in your journey. You may have to experience and maybe make a few mistakes, but there are plenty of resources. Basically, your teaching style would kind of be the way you learn best. So there are aptitude tests that you can take online. You can just type in, what is my learning style? Or what is my teaching style when homeschooling, or something like that. Type that in, Google. And for me, I am a visual learner, so a lot of times I expect other people to be visual and auditory learners, such as I. And so I'm a big note taker, and I expect that if I write something down on the board, that my kids are going to look at it and they're going to know it. That's not always the case, though. I have a kinesthetic learner, and I also have a visual learner. So I have one of each. Kinesthetic is way out of my lane. Way out of my lane, excuse me. He is way out of my lane. I'm not a tangible learner. I'm not one that learns by doing. You try to get me to just put something in front of me and tell me to go at it, I'm going to say, not today, not tomorrow either, because I just don't have it in me. But he does. So I have to improvise a lot. That's something to consider, because your teaching style versus your children's learning style. So that was my next thing, the learning style of your kids. You need to consider those things when you start homeschooling your kids. Now, you don't have to consider it 1 year in advance before you start homeschooling. I would say that if you had a year to pray on it and ask the Lord what he wanted you to do in this, then yes, do that. Obviously, if you have a 3-year-old or a 4-year-old and you're just considering your future, then absolutely. But if you're right there now and you want to homeschool your child right now, then that's not going to be an option for you. Another thing is your lifestyle. Again, that goes in with time that we mentioned in the first part, the time, but your lifestyle as well. You know, how many days a week are you actually away from your children, or not necessarily away from your children, but in circumstances to where you would not be, you know, talking about their education. You would not be sharing information with them. Now, life is a learning experience, and there are a lot of unschooling parents that could give you tips and advice on how to incorporate everyday learning with just life happening. And there are a lot of people that really do that. I know that term has been used loosely, and a lot of people are abusing that term. But there are still moms and dads out there that really are unschooling their children, and they can definitely help you in that area. I am not one to ask about that because we don't have that many unschooling days. We do incorporate unschooling into our homeschool, if that makes sense, but it's not every single day. And unschooling could be baking cookies with your child and talking about the measurements, things like that. That's an example of unschooling. That's your math there. That's your math. That's your science, that you have a substance and you're adding oil and water, and if you add baking soda or whatever, then you're going to transform it into another, you know, flour and baking soda is what I meant. But anyway, I think you know what I mean. If you're baking a cake or whatever, and you're transforming that flour, those dry ingredients, you're making them wet, so it's no longer a solid, but it's a liquid, and then, you know, you transform it, and that's science and math, if you don't know. So yeah, those are some things that you should consider whenever you are thinking about homeschooling. I'm sorry that I started rambling there at the end. I tend to always do that. I'm so sorry. But I hope this has been a blessing to someone. I hope this is helping someone who is considering homeschooling. And God bless you. Have a great day. Bye-bye.